Hi, this is Kendall Boyson, professional life and recovery coach, and you're listening to Encouragementology, the practice of instilling hope. Hi there. Thanks for joining me. On this show, we're exploring how what you see depends on where you stand, and how changing your vantage point can completely reshape the way you experience the challenges in your life. Have you ever felt so close to something, so in it, that it's all you could see? Like no matter how hard you tried, you couldn't get around it or over it, and it just kept filling your entire view? It's a feeling that builds quietly. You don't always notice it at first. It starts with caring, showing up, being involved, and then somewhere along the way, you find yourself right up against it. The situation, the responsibility, the expectation. Close enough that it feels bigger than it really is. Close enough that you start to feel it all depends on you. That if you step away even for a moment, something important might drop. And when you're standing there, right in front of it, everything can feel urgent. Everything can feel heavy. There's no distance to soften it, no space to question it, no room to see anything beyond it. Just the pressure of being in it. But then something changes. Maybe you step away for a little while. Maybe life pulls you in a different environment, somewhere quieter, wider, less demanding. And suddenly, without forcing it, your perspective opens. The thing that felt overwhelming doesn't disappear, but it no longer fills the entire frame. It's like you've moved just enough to see around it. There's something powerful about that kind of distance, about getting above something instead of facing it head on. When you change where you stand, you don't just see the situation differently, you begin to see your role in it with more clarity. And sometimes, that's where everything starts to make more sense. Let's start with something simple, but easy to miss. Perspective isn't only about how you think. It's about where you're standing when you think it. When you're right up next to a problem, it can feel enormous. Not necessarily complicated, just consuming. It fills your line of sight. You can't see where it starts or where it ends. There's no space around it, no sense of proportion. It's just there, right in front of you, asking for your attention. And when you stay in that position, something else begins to happen. You don't just see the problem as bigger. You start to see yourself as more responsible for it. You feel like you have to manage it, fix it, stay on top of it. You begin to believe that your presence is the reason it's holding together. That's where things get heavy, not from the situation itself, but from the meaning we attach to our role in it. Now, contrast that with what happens when you change your vantage point, not by ignoring the issue or walking away completely, but by creating just a little distance. When you step back even slightly, the edges start to come into view. You can see what's connected and what's not. You can tell what actually needs your energy and what might be running on its own. It's like looking at something from above instead of straight on. From the ground, a hill can feel like a wall. From higher up, you realize it's just one part of a much bigger landscape. And here's where this really matters. When you're too close, everything feels urgent. Everything feels important. It all blends together into one level of intensity. But when you give yourself space, you start to notice differences. Some things matter right now. Some things can wait. And some things were never yours to carry in the first place. This is where perspective becomes more than a mindset. It becomes a position. And sometimes the most helpful thing you can do isn't to push harder or think differently. It's to simply take a step back and see what's actually in front of you. There's a concept in psychology called the illusion of control, and it speaks directly to what we're talking about today. It's the tendency to believe we have more influence over outcomes than we actually do. Not in an arrogant way, but in a deeply human, well-intentioned way. When we care about something, we lean in, we pay attention, we stay involved, and over time, that involvement can quietly turn into ownership, and ownership into pressure. Researchers have found that people often feel more responsible for outcomes when they're actively engaged, even if their involvement isn't what's actually driving the result. In other words, we can start to believe things are working because we're managing them, when in reality, many parts are functioning independently. That idea shows up in the work of Brené Brown, who talks about overfunctioning. She describes it as a pattern where one person takes on more than their share, often stepping in before others have a chance to respond. It can look like being helpful, being reliable, like the one who always has it handled. But underneath it, there's often a belief that if we don't do it, it won't get done, or it won't get done right. And here's the part that's easy to overlook. When we operate that way, we don't just wear ourselves out. We also interrupt the natural balance that would have happened without us. Other people don't step in. Systems don't get tested. Space never gets created for things to unfold on their own. There's also a broader, almost grounding reminder that shows up across so many teachings and philosophies. Life keeps moving. The seasons change. The tide comes in and goes out. Days turn into night and back again. Not based on our effort, but on something much bigger and more consistent than anything we could ever manage. I felt that in a very real way on a recent trip. We moved through different states, different landscapes, wide open spaces that didn't ask anything of me. No expectations, no constant checking, no feeling like I needed to hold anything together. And in that space, it became really clear. Everything I thought needed my constant attention was still moving forward. Maybe not perfectly or exactly how I would have done it, but it was moving. And that realization didn't take anything away from my role. It just put it in its proper place. It reminded me that I can care deeply without carrying everything. That I can be involved without being the center of it all. Sometimes what we need most isn't more effort. It's just a clearer view of what actually depends on us and what doesn't. Let's stay here for a minute and really walk this out together. Not just as an idea, but something you can feel in your own life. I want you to picture that thing you've been carrying. The one that feels like it needs your constant attention. Maybe it's work-related or something in your family. Maybe it's just a running list in your head that never really shuts off. You know the one. It's the thing that pops up the moment you slow down. Now, imagine yourself standing right in front of it, close enough to touch it, close enough that it fills your entire field of vision. When you're in that position, everything about it feels immediate, important, urgent. It almost demands your attention, like it's tapping you on the shoulder saying, "Don't forget about me." Now, without changing the situation at all, just imagine taking a few steps back. Not running away from it or ignoring it, just a few steps back. What happens? Most people notice the same thing. The intensity drops, even if it's just a little. You start to see edges. You start to realize there are other things around it. It's still there and real. It's still something to deal with, but it's no longer the only thing. Now, take it one step further. Imagine that you're looking at it from above, like you climbed up on a hill and you're looking down from a higher place. From there, you might notice something else. That one issue is part of a much bigger picture. There are more moving pieces, other people, other timelines, other factors that don't rely solely on you. And this is where it gets really interesting. From that higher vantage point, ask yourself this question. What part of this actually requires me, and what part I just assumed responsibility for? That question alone can open up so much space. Now, let's bring it into real life with a simple experiment. Think of one thing this week that you normally stay very close to. Something you monitor, check on, follow up with, maybe even double check after someone else has already handled it. Instead of doing what you usually do, change your position just slightly. Delay your response. Skip the extra check. Let someone else carry it through without stepping in. And here's the key. Don't do it with anxiety. Do it with curiosity. Watch what happens. Does it completely fall apart? Or does it adjust? Does someone else step in? Does it resolve itself? Does it matter less than you thought it would? What you're looking for isn't perfection. You're looking for truth. And the truth is, a lot of what we hold so tightly continues moving, even if we loosen our grip. Not always the way we would have done it, but often well enough. Sometimes even better in ways we didn't anticipate. And as you test this, you may notice something else happening inside of you. A little discomfort at first, maybe even resistance. That feeling that you should step back in just to be safe. That's not the situation calling you back. That's the habit of being close to everything. So instead of rushing back in, stay where you are. Just for a moment longer. Let the space exist. Let the outcome unfold. You're not proving that you don't matter. You're learning where you do matter and where you've been standing closer than you need to. So how do we actually live this out? Not just think about it or agree with it, but apply it in a way that feels real and doable. Well, it starts with recognizing that stepping back doesn't require a dramatic exit. You don't have to overhaul your life or walk away from your responsibilities. Most of the time, it's much smaller than that. It's a series of intentional choices that create just enough space for you to see things more clearly. The first thing is to create distance on purpose. And I don't mean disappearing or checking out. I mean choosing moments where you're not immediately reacting or engaging. That could look like taking a walk without your phone or letting emails sit there for an hour before responding, or even just pausing before you jump in to solve something. That small bit of space gives your mind room to breathe and helps you return with a clearer view of what actually needs your attention. The second is to start sorting what truly belongs to you. When everything feels close, it's easy to treat every issue like it carries the same level of importance. But when you slow down, you can begin to separate what requires your involvement from what simply caught your attention. Not everything that lands in front of you is yours to carry. Let me repeat that. Not everything that lands in front of you is yours to carry. Some things are just yours to notice and then let pass through. Another helpful step is to adjust the way you talk to yourself about what's happening. When we use words that stretch a situation like, "this always happens," or "nothing ever works," we intentionally give it more weight and permanence. So try some softer language. Bring it back to what's actually happening right now in the moment. You'll often find that it's more manageable when it's felt first. And finally, give things the opportunity to work without your constant involvement. This can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to being the one who keeps everything moving. But when you allow space, you start to see where things naturally hold, where others step in, and where outcomes don't rely on you as much as you thought. Remember, you're not stepping back to care less. You're stepping back to see more clearly, to engage more intentionally, and to place your energy where it actually makes a difference. And over time, that changes everything about how you show up. The A side is the familiar story we all know. Stay close, stay involved, stay on top of it. That's how things get done. That's how you show you care. That's how you make sure nothing falls through the cracks. But the B side? That's where the deeper tracks live. What if staying close isn't always the strongest position? What if being in everything, managing everything, thinking about everything is actually what's keeping you from seeing clearly? There's a quieter perspective here that doesn't get talked about as much. Sometimes the more we insert ourselves, the harder it is to recognize what's already working without us. We blur the lines between what needs our input and what simply needs space, time, and someone else's perspective. And here's the part that can feel a little uncomfortable. When you begin to step back and things continue moving, it can challenge something deeper than just your habits. It can touch your identity. If you've been the one who always shows up, always fixes, always holds things together, there can be part of you that quietly asks, well then, where do I fit if I'm not doing all of that? That question matters, not in a heavy way, but in a very honest one. Maybe your value was never meant to come from how tightly you held everything. Maybe it comes from how thoughtfully you choose where you stand. There's also a kind of trust that develops here, not blind trust or careless distance, but a steady confidence that life, people, and systems have the ability to respond, adapt, and carry forward without constant intervention. And when you allow that to happen, something else opens up. You gain room. Room to think more clearly, to respond instead of act, to be present in your life, not just managing it. So the B-side isn't about doing less for the sake of it. It's about recognizing that being everywhere all the time isn't what makes things meaningful or successful. Sometimes the most powerful place to stand is just far enough back to see the whole picture. I want to share a simple story that brings this idea to life in a real, tangible way. There was a woman who tended a large garden behind her house. Every day, she walked the rows, checking the soil, adjusting the water, trimming leaves, pulling weeds. She knew every plant, every inch of that space. And over time, she began to believe that the garden thrived only because she was constantly there watching over it. If she skipped a day, she felt uneasy. If she traveled, she worried. In her mind, everything depended on her attention, her effort, and her presence. One summer, she had to leave for a short trip. It wasn't long, just enough to make her uncomfortable. Before she left, she gave detailed instructions to a neighbor, walking them through everything: what to water, what to watch, what might go wrong. And even as she drove away, she carried that garden with her, wondering if the soil would dry out, if the plants would wilt, if something would go unnoticed. When she returned, she walked straight to the garden, almost bracing herself for what she might find. But instead of struggling, it was fine. Not perfect. A few leaves had gone a little wild. Some areas looked different than she would have managed them. But the garden was still growing, still alive, still doing what gardens do. And standing there, she realized something she hadn't seen before. She hadn't been the one making it grow. She had been caring for it, supporting it and tending to it, but the growth, the life, the movement of it all had never depended solely on her. The sun had shown up. The rain had come. The roots had done their work beneath the surface. And for the first time, she didn't feel less important. She felt relieved. Relieved to know that she could step away and things would continue. That her role mattered, but it didn't require her constant presence. That she could care deeply without holding it all together. Sometimes we stand so close to what we're tending that we forget. Life has a way of continuing, growing, and filling in the gaps, even when we're not right there managing every detail. And when we step back just enough to see that, something inside of us softens. We don't have to hold everything so tightly anymore. Let's slow it down. I want to give you a few ideas to sit with. Not to solve anything, but to help you gently step back and see your life from a different place. And if you find this helpful, don't forget, there's a 5-day journaling companion available for download if you want to go deeper and spend more time with this idea. Let's start here. Where in my life am I standing too close to something right now? What feels urgent or overwhelming in this moment? Is it filling my entire view, making everything else harder to see? What might I notice if I gave myself a little distance from it? Now take it one layer deeper. What have I taken responsibility for that may not fully belong to me? Did someone ask me to carry this, or did I step into it on my own? What am I afraid would happen if I step back even slightly? Is there any evidence that things could continue without my constant involvement? And finally, bring it into possibility. What would it look like to change where I stand this week? What's one small thing I could step back from and loosen my grip on? How could I approach that with curiosity instead of control? What might open up for me if I trusted that not everything depends on me? You don't have to answer all of these questions at once. You don't even have to write them down if that's not your style. Just letting the questions sit with you, turning them over in your mind, can begin to create that space that we've been talking about. And sometimes that space is all it takes to start seeing things differently. There are moments when I find myself standing so close to something that it begins to feel larger than life. My thoughts circle it, my energy pours into it, and without realizing it, I begin to believe it all depends on me. I replay conversations, I anticipate outcomes. I try to stay one step ahead of what might happen next. And in doing that, I slowly lose sight of everything else around me. My world narrows, not intentionally, but gradually, until that one thing feels like the center of everything. In those moments, I forget that life has a rhythm that exists beyond my effort. I forget that there are pieces moving, growing, unfolding without my constant attention. I forget that I am part of something, not the force holding it all together. And then, when I pause even briefly, something begins to soften. It might be a quiet moment, a change of scenery, or simply choosing not to engage right away. There's a small opening, almost unnoticeable at first, where the urgency loosens its grip. I can take a breath. I can look around. I can begin to see that what felt overwhelming a moment ago is still there, but it no longer defines everything. Today, I will give myself permission to step back, even in small ways, and trust that life will continue to move and unfold without my constant involvement. I will notice where I've been standing too close, and I will gently create space, allowing clarity, peace, and trust to take their place. If you want to share encouragementology with a friend who needs to know they're not alone in this journey of self-discovery, you can visit encouragementology.com or anywhere you stream your content to receive this episode and all others. Check out the show notes for the 5-day journaling companion and follow us on Facebook and Instagram for additional encouragement throughout the week. So I challenge you, take one area of your life where you've been standing too close and intentionally create a little space this week. Don't walk away from it, just loosen your grip. Step back enough to see it more clearly and allow it the chance to move without your constant involvement. You might be surprised at how capable life is and how much lighter you feel when you don't carry it all. I know you can do it. Thank you for listening to Encouragementology with Kendall Boyson, where we find positive ways to handle some of life's challenges.
I stumbled through until the path was clear. That's when I found